For my students' projects, they did some research. They picked a topic related to water that they were interested in, and for my class, they did the framing of, we kind of looked at under 3 main questions of what do you do if there's too much water, what do you do if there's not enough water, and then who is in control of like the water resources that we do have. So under that umbrella, students got to kind of choose their own topic that fell in that category. We did some class brainstorming. They wrote an artist statement kind of based on the research that they did, and then they made working water fountains inspired by their research. So it was kind of a 2-part project. It was cool to see when I really asked them to kind of dive more deeply into something, like most of them were really willing to and really had a lot of cool and interesting opinions.
For the water fountain project, I tried my best to make a golden globe saying the world is yours, to just show that like the world is ours and we can do something like to change our current situation about water.
I now have more knowledge, about water and, as a topic, related to environmental change.
My students were studying how and why sea levels are changing around the planet, and then specifically how it's going to affect the San Francisco Bay Area. I think they learned a lot of science about climate change, about why climate change is occurring and what are the ramifications of that. And I think that I hope that they took away also a sense of the possibility of, in terms of the solutions that they can apply to their own local level.
The prompt was obviously all focused around water, why it's important, what would happen if we didn't have enough water, what would happen if we treated it better. And so the kids really came up with an array of different projects and focuses of their directions, I suppose. I think they became a little more familiar with just the controversies and the importance of how we treat our water as humanity.
In doing the project, I've paid more attention to like the things around me, and since my thing was a jellyfish, I paid more attention to like the things that go into the ocean and everything.
I've become more appreciative of the environment, I would say.
I think my students learned how to create research-based artwork about an issue that is hopefully now important to them. They maybe have not have thought about the importance of water in their lives and the impact that it can have. And definitely as a result, I have incorporated research kind of throughout all of the art making process, whether it's just like researching different like processes and then experimenting with them to doing like full-blown research-based artwork.
My project, it's like, you have a truck, dumping the trash into someone else's lake, that's like indigenous land. Indigenous people land, where they turn like a clean water into like an acid for humans to swim.
My thing was about flooding, so I'm showing like anger in the water, and then there's like fists of water too, kind of destroying the house, and then kind of a tsunami over the house. Basically just showing how like water can be good and bad and destructive. It just showed me like we need to hurry before things get worse.
I made a fish, but like the fish is kind of 3D and it's like attached to some strings. So it kind of gives it the illusion that it's floating midair. I had to do some research on the anatomy of fishes, and then I did some research on how fishes are being affected by all this, I'd say climate change, and how the sea level really affects fishes and stuff.
We did a 3D model of the North Platte area. Kind of growing up, I had like a dad that was interested in doing train dioramas and models and things like that. So I used that as kind of an entryway and how to get started with the project. But it was showing locally based phenomenon that kids see every day and tying it back to water. The feedback I got from my kids was, this is so much fun. We need to do more stuff like this in science. And so it was a really, really cool experience.
This is a really cool project is because a lot of us in this classroom kind of live in the flatlands of Oakland or kind of like near the water, but we really don't ever really get to experience it. And so it's just something that you get to dream about, like what could be, you know, if we actually all got together and put our heads together with the science we have now, with the technology, with the knowing the history, the true history, which is not really talked about a lot, about kind of like how we got to this stage where where our bay is polluted.
Doing this project was bigger than any of us could have imagined. Like the governor invited our class, and he doesn't invite a lot of public school kids to his office, and the kids got to sit down with them and interview them. And the community involvement in this project would not believe. The NRDs, we've had people from research centers like reaching out to us after reading the paper and wanting to help. I had our principal come in and ask if he could buy us a drone. Like, is this for that California deal? Yes. So we've had all the support, and it's really brought our school together in ways I couldn't imagine.
I think I'm most proud of just the product in general, because it was a thing that was made by like 10 high school students. So just to hear the feedback of it and how the good feedback from it.
Well, I learned that there was a water compact to begin with, and I learned about how much water actually affects like everybody, like how from the suburbs to the urban areas and even the agriculture. I didn't know it made such a big impact everywhere.